New.
Apparently
Tech
they
CEOs?
dumped 300 pounds of shit in front of Nancy Pelosi's house on the street, like yesterday or something. So yeah, cleaning up. Yeah, there you go.
Well,
Anyway.
they probably collected that all right before Xi got here, and then they just dumped it.
And then they
down.
dumped it there. They were saving it. Right.
Yeah.
That's smart. That's how you do it. Activism 101.
I mean, he comes into town. They got out the red carpet for him. He's meeting Tim Cook. He's meeting these tech guys, and the writing is on the wall. China is on the future, and we jumped off ship.
Now, he didn't meet Biden, did he?
No, he did not.
So he came to this country. He met this country's top capitalist in tech. Didn't meet the president. Figured out what he had to figure out with them. And then went back home. He just came here and had his way with the...
Juxtapose this to when Netanyahu came here in 2012 or 13.
Yeah, and spoke in the Senate, circumvented Obama.
Yeah, and I think John Boehner was the Speaker of the House.
Boehner, yeah.
And it was a big controversy, like, oh, look at this slight on the president.
Yeah.
Like, Netanyahu came, didn't meet the president.
Yeah.
And, this is just like, it's happening in front of our eyes. And who would comfortably be okay with Biden being in that room? Look, right now, Congress is running these hearings in Congress right now where they're inviting TikTok CEO and saying, hey, are you part of the CCP? And he's from Singapore. You trust these people to go to a tech summit and talk to these tech leaders about scaling their products, supply chains, the sanctity of their operations, whatever, like, their procurement is. Do we trust...
Biden wouldn't even be able to give an interview to forget about Tucker Carlson, anybody for 2 hours without falling asleep.
Yeah, honestly, I really feel like some of these debates he will be drugged up.
Amnesia, not just historic amnesia. He actually has amnesia. Dumbass.
It's not political nihilism. I'm just a nihilist.
He's just a nihilist.
I mean, honestly, I've gone through my considerable ups and downs with nihilism in domestically, like
100%. Yeah,
and it's not political nihilism with electoral politics. And at this stage, it's more so like I mean. When we first got exposed in 2000, 2004, 2008,
yeah.
I think 2000 was the first election where I actually had any type of salient understanding.
Right. Yeah.
I was probably I don't know, 8, 9, give or take. Yeah, 8. And the
2008 was Obama's first election. Oh, 2000.
2000 was Gore and Bush, and I didn't know anything
Yeah.
about either of this. This, it was just two guys running, but it was okay. This is an election; it's a big deal. Something's happening.
Yeah.
I guess you're getting into the system now, where you're having a civic understanding, and I think right after that 9/11, then the Iraq War, and then 2004 was a big deal. Like, oh, look, Howard Dean's running. Look, we need to get this guy out of office because he started this war. Look, everyone sees it, right? This guy started a war, and he shouldn't have done it. He's an idiot. See. Yeah. Like, we need to get... And I think we were in 7th grade. Anyone could have thought, okay, this guy can't win again.
Yeah.
As in, what kind of... Yeah. And winning through all that gave him the political capital, And after that, it did kind of give me a sort of, a very nihilistic approach for a couple of years.
Yeah.
At least to electoral politic.
Right.
I want to
That happened to me with Obama. Did that for me.
Which time?
Huh?
08 or 12?
I mean, 08 leading up to 12. Leading up to 12, I was like, I don't know about this.
And in 12,
I think I still supported it, if I'm not mistaken. I did. That's the first election I voted in. That's because I was 20 or something. I don't know, something like that.
And it was Obama 12.
Yeah. But I was like, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought, he might be I thought he was a preferable person.
That's where yeah.
Right, and it made some some kind of weird okay, he's better than the other guy. And I was not viewing things who the hell cares if he's better than the other guy or he's the best person to run or whatever.
When they both suck that bad, when the whole thing sucks that bad, it doesn't really matter which one's
Yeah, especially because I was...
Aesthetically
I think I was just seeing through the fact that this guy had scaled back every one of his policies that he had talked about from, he had ran on the public
Healthcare,
option.
all of that, yeah.
I think he ran on the public option, and he scaled that back to whatever he passed.
Whatever it was.
And then Gitmo was still open.
Yep.
Turns out all of the people from the bank failure, they got a free pass.
Yeah.
All of no one got a war crimes trial. So nothing, and it just
no one
went
got
back.
a war crimes trial. He started bombing like 5 other countries.
Yeah. And turns out, honestly, yeah. So, I didn't vote for him. I did think, I didn't think favorably of him. I didn't have such a distaste for him like I do now.
Was this Ron Paul era?
Yeah, I did.
Because Ron Paul was my guy. That was also like he was probably the first figure that politicized me, and I'm not a libertarian in any way, shape, or form. Even at that time, I had that nihilism for anything domestic policy wise. And he was saying, what? The whole thing is corrupt, the whole thing is bad. And that kind of like, I was like, okay, well, what is this? And he was talking about the foreign policy and all of that. And that is where, that is what I had kind of realized, where when Obama's foreign policy was clearly a progression of Bush's, that's when I was like, yeah, this domestic stuff doesn't matter. In the big picture, this is what's going on.
Yeah, you see that with Biden, and it's kind of honestly the same playbook. Came back after a tumultuous, Republican presidency. Quickly, business as usual. Everyone, don't pay attention. Go back. Internationally, we got State Department full force.
Full force.
They did it under Obama with Libya, Syria, and now with Biden. Again, Pakistan, this whole adventure that they've gone on in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Pakistan, you're seeing them using their cohorts like usual, but these pawns needed to be moved. And the State Department is now making those moves that they weren't under Trump. They couldn't under Trump, not because of Trump's objections, but his incompetence.
Right.
Or his I'm cutting funding for this just cause, we don't need an embassy here just cause. Or something stupid, right? Just like anything dumb that you can imagine. And that's definitely, now sitting here, if Trump ran against Obama in 12, I'm saying to you, hey, I'd rather have an incompetent guy dismantling the U.S. imperial machine, right? If I want to dismantle the imperial machine, who do I want? Do I want a competent person, or do I want the logical one? The logical one's going to fall in line, and
do what needs to be done to continue and continue expanding that. The incompetent person is...
And if you disagree with that, we have a lot of history to look at.
Yeah.
We have a lot of history of again, anyone who has any type of critique of this can just go back and look at there's 46, 47 presidents. Who are they? Where are they coming from? How are they getting to this point? Right? As in from the inception of this country, we talked about the colonial settler state.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we had...
Who was George Washington, a general?
A war general. Then we have another war general. Then we have, a string of war generals from Andrew Jackson. We talk about
Theodore
Grant.
Roosevelt.
Ulysses S. Grant.
Yeah. Theodore Roosevelt led literal campaigns.
Oh, really?
Teddy Roosevelt.
Led campaigns as president.
Not as campaigns, but he had done that. He was up there in war. He was famous. He was a famous general.
Yeah, and it culminates in a sense with Eisenhower. Eisenhower was a war general, and I feel like that's a time where there's the perfect conditions for with a war general who, for all intents and purposes, did not care to govern, right?
Yeah.
From all sources, did not care. For all intents and purposes, from all sources, did not care.
Yeah.
To govern, but to be president. Or I guess thought the idea of being president was
something
was beneficial to him or everyone else, whatever.
Yeah.
But that combined with the fact that wealth and political capital, hegemony, military might had concentrated so dramatically after World War II in this country that we can't even imagine the kind of power the military-industrial complex, specifically clandestine operations, the CIA had in this country in the 50s, specifically starting from the 50s.
Yeah.
The there's just I'm failing to think of the word. Just no other competition.
Unchallenged.
Yeah, unchallenged internationally by any organization with that type of capital.
Yeah.
With that type of ability to go into a country, bribe someone, kill someone, get out, have unparalleled like machinery, ammunitions, like arms, and the reach to like, you know, move drugs and armaments from one end of the world to the other without being coming on the radar. Yeah, without consequence, without coming on the radar, without people even right now knowing like, okay, well, to what extent that this was happening. But
people here in this country.
People in the countries affected themselves know like, you know, who did what, and I guess even they can't understand the expanse. Hey, whatever happened here, they were doing it in the other corner of the world.
Right.
If you go to the Pakistan elections right now, Imran Khan was in jail, and other prime ministers have been in jail. I think the most famous one being Bhutto.
Yeah.
Bhutto, when he was in jail, you know, he dies there. He gets hung. You look into the conditions and the way that judicial coup took place, and the overlap, the similarities between that and in Chile with Allende. Honestly, if you zoom out a little bit, in other places in Africa, Lumumba, you see the full extent of the CIA at play. And I do feel like, you know, that war general path that a lot of presidents took, that a war general, like executive, whatever, that's been infiltrated since the 50s by the CIA, by anyone running for public office with that kind of notoriety. I maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist to an extent, maybe paranoid. You cannot tell me an organization with that level of funding, that level of money, that level of, you know, just no oversight, no supervision, and any oversight that, you know, they took care of. Well, you know, JFK, Nixon, going down the road. You see someone like, you know, Biden, someone, you know, I think he was also in the military, right?
I'm not sure.
I mean, I think so. I think so. And him going through the rings of power in this country, going through the halls, and, you know, not being based in some kind of, you know, royal family like Kennedy or something, not kind of, you know, not being part of some kind of like, you know, oil family or whatnot, but still making it through these rings of power to all the way to president. I don't believe anyone gets to that chair in this country without the
support and blessing of the CIA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not tacit approval. It has. No. It's not a stamp.
It's a blessing.
Yeah. You get there. It's everything short of an interview with these guys.
Yeah.
And if you are not, that's because the guys handling you are.
Yeah.
And you can see that with, you know, Reagan. Even though I think Reagan himself was obviously like, you know, an FBI guy in the 50s. But that, just knowing that about, or I mean, I guess I know it to be true, but if, you know, with anyone else, just knowing the history of where these presidents are coming from in this country, overall, you zoom out, you're like, hey, so our expansion throughout this continent, our domination of everyone to the south and everyone to the north, taking over half of Mexico in the grand scheme of things. If again, you think about it like we do with the Romans, we're thinking about the Romans over 500-600 years and what they did, what they accomplished, what kind of, at the extent of their power, how they had taken over the Mediterranean. Same way, at the extent of our power, you look at it.
I was thinking this in the next centuries, when they write back about America, they're going to write about this as being a warring nation and a warlike people.
a warlike people.
That will be the perception.
Yeah, with the only goal of expansion.
With the only goal of expansion. You look at the way the Mongols are written about.
Actually, it would not be much different.
It would not be much different. It went around destroying shit, taking shit over, reaping the benefit of it, expanding,
killing off the indigenous population,
mercilessly.
Yeah, taking over half of settling of Mexican or I guess Spanish and Mexican territory, and then taking over half of that country by force.
Yeah, and
then now the rest of that country is subservient. Part of a drug, it's literally just like a vassal.
Proxy cartels running.
Even though right now, obviously, they have like they're having like a national awakening of sorts in a way.
Yeah, well, you see that in Latin America in general. Latin America, Africa, those countries are starting to, again, the memory is starting to become kind of unbearable. At this point, it's like, hey, you guys have been doing this to us for so long, and you keep going. One of the things that was said in the interview, right, with Putin as well, is that he said, I tried working with the Americans for a very long time. I was always rebuffed. It came to this.
Yeah, and again, you don't work for the Americans. You work for us.
Yeah, you don't work with us. You work for us.
Yeah, and if you think you're going to work for fair wages, fair labor, fair whatever, for your resources, you have another. You have another thing coming.
Exactly. That's not going to fly if you're domestic to this country. That's not going to fly if you are a different country.
I mean, unless again you have the kind of educated classes, the intelligentsia of somewhere like Pakistan, where obviously like finding it's very difficult for the bottom, like the underprivileged classes, to a bottom up. In my opinion, again, this is something you can debate with people, but a bottom up revolution usually, in my opinion, is not. It's usually top down. As in, like, the conditions. I mean, the conditions are present for that to happen. Right. The material conditions are present for that to happen. But the revolution is really top down, where there's an intelligentsia that is ready for that transition into the next phase of development for a populace. And in Pakistan specifically, that's not the intelligentsia, the upper crust of educated classes. I'm not talking about their wealth status, but just their level of education. Yeah. Or their understanding of the world outside of the the country itself.
Their social status.
And it's not, the kind of nihilism of the US, but it's far and away from the national consciousness that's somewhere like even Brazil. When I visited Brazil, you would have people really thinking that they've come to a new stage of development where they are not going to work for us. Right. They're not going to work under us, or if they're going to work for us, they're going to work for us for fair wages, or like and I feel that consciousness is not present right now. I mean,
why not right now, and has it ever been?
I don't think right now, because of honestly just we have found ourselves in no man's land in this grand chess match, so to speak, where we're not in with the BRICS countries, the BRICS coalition that is forming. We're not part of that, and
no. When you're talking about you're talking about Pakistan or the U.S.
Well, in Pakistan.
Okay. Yeah. Just to clarify. Yeah.
And when it comes to as far as the relationship with the U.S., we're not even qualified to work for them anymore. Right. Because whatever they needed in South Asia, they are extracted. Right. Whatever they need in Afghanistan, they are extracted. They are on great terms with India. Right now,
and if they have anything that they're concerned about, they can just do a legislative coup or any kind of coup for that matter.
They have no Pakistan right now faces regional and international isolation. Yeah. And that honestly is for the foreseeable future. I mean, even when they come out of this right now, what's going to what's going to happen with, again, going to the debt crisis, and which lobby they form with. They going back to the BRICS, going back to that lobby. That's a long path backwards, right? And there's a lot of people in line now for that.
A lot of people in line for that.
And you would think, honestly, that the upper crust, the educated classes of society would be able to see that. Be able to, not have the amnesia of, let's not maybe not have the consciousness of centuries.
Yeah.
But at least know, what happened in the recent past.
Yeah.
And even that is very scarce. And that's what you're saying right now. Has it ever existed? For a state like, a artificial state like Pakistan, where I don't know if you can really term it settler, but it is, if I had to maybe analogize it to kind of characterize my point, if you take out Islam, you take away Islam from Iran, there's still Persian people.
Yeah.
And you do that with I guess Iraq to an extent, or you could do that with Turkey. There's still Turkish people.
There's a history of those people being there and that being some sort of polity.
Yeah, there is
even with the different ethnicities.
Yeah, there is a relational dynamic, and here you see this artificial state that is really imposed on a populace that didn't really ask for it. As in, the population that migrated to Pakistan, they were, they were for the state, whatever. I don't know what the breakdown of that is.
Yeah,
but for the most part, the local populations during that whole 20-30 year project, at least, they're for the most part willing to be part of a greater state, right?
Yeah.
It could be the indigenous populaces of Sindh or the border province at that time, the northwest frontier province.
Yeah.
But that becomes subservient to the will of a population that migrates and then imposes itself, right? Or I guess becomes part and parcel with the already existing power brokers, the feudal lords, whoever comes up as a natural consequence of infrastructure like civil services, defense, law enforcement. And the bottom rungs of that hierarchy are the locals now.
Yeah.
Because you already had the dynamic at play of these feudal lords or landholders. Yeah. And now you have the added layer, I guess, in that hierarchy of a populace that is being imported. And there was not, let's say, very it's like a very small percentage wise, but also when we form the infrastructure of this state, and that sole purpose is the state. The state is being formed for the purpose of the state, not to further a national interest.
Yeah.
Right? It's not even being. You can ask. There's some mixed reviews. What do you mean some? That's what the whole fault line of Pakistan is. Where is it even being formed to further a religious agenda? And it's not, right? It seems almost. I mean, I'm a Pakistani myself. It seems almost like a colonial project, like Israel is almost. You cut away, before going, the British cut away a little bit of piece of land. And again, I'm not analogizing the two on a broader, in a broader way, but it does feel a lot that the coming about of this state is a colonial project in a sense,
as in a means for the U.S. or the British or whoever to retain control of that area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And again, you can go back
through divide and conquer, though, or through more of a clientelism, or both, obviously.
I mean, I honestly think, they left the political class in both countries to be honestly British without being British. And I think that is actually a quote almost about Muhammad Ali Jinnah, right? That he's British without being British.
Right.
And I think we had a discussion about this a couple of days ago, and I think honestly this kind of sums it up. Like, like what causes this kind of disinterest from national or the state's interest, right? I'm talking about a much more specific type of disinterest than even the political nihilism of the U.S. right now, which is like there is no, it's a very artificial society, I guess, that we are trying to and when if it ever comes to fruition, it will be something that we've created from nothing.
Yeah.
Because what is this national consciousness? We were talking about it about the importing of rap music into Pakistan, and that taking a hold on a lot of people, and how some people are against it. Some people are against this importing of U.S. culture. And I mean, while I understand the nationalist in any other country saying this, when you are part of the societal dynamic of Pakistan and everyone's dying to get an education in English, specifically English, going to a school that teaches you all the subjects in English, or your law is British common law, or your infrastructure is British, the government runs on that, and you are all your loans are from the IMF education system, and if you want to go somewhere, you want to go to Europe on travel, you want to go to a British university or American university, you want to resettle in one of those countries, and that is that has really it brings two questions, right? What is actually can you ever have an unbiased or a politic of self-interest nationally? At what point can you think independently, really, if all of your culture and your understanding of the world is based in based on the social understanding of the colonizer, right? Putin's bad, Xi is bad, communism's weird, this is atheistic, this isn't good. Right? Who is is that possible, even that you can have that a view that is disconnected from the baggage of colonization? And honestly, secondly, what is again, maybe it's a bit redundant, but what this is just an imposition of a cultural dynamic on a people who have nothing homogenous. There is no homogeneous, there's no national commonality if you take out religion.
Multiple languages, ethnicities, all of that. Yeah.
And almost, honestly, at times competing interests.
Yeah.
Almost, playing the part that, you would hope some country in Africa was during the, when the Europeans started colonizing Africa, and extracting labor and people from it. Honestly, you would think if you had to create something in South Asia after World War II, Pakistan would be it.
Right.
Pakistan would be it. It could be based on some other thing, but you would want something of that sort there if you're a colonizer.
Yeah.
And at its actualization, honestly, I don't see it being anything but part of a bigger regional force. You have to I don't feel like you would ever be anything more than, you know, something that Argentina and Peru are to Brazil and South America. To analogize, like what Pakistan's relationship at its actualization needs to be with India would be something of, you know, what Argentina has proven for Brazil or Peru has for Brazil over the past 15, 20 years. Yeah. I'm talking about economically and foreign policy wise.
Yeah, oh, for sure. For sure.
And currently, obviously, you can see it. In neither country does that dynamic, like, you know, seem like it can really exist. In India, you have the far right, like, you know, and in Pakistan, honestly, it's like a politic of characters, a politic of identity, a politic of hierarchy, and
politic of characters. I mean, the political party is named after the person who leads it.
Yeah, a politic of dynasties, right? Yeah. So, the only, I guess, silver lining is for good. I mean, you know, a little bit of that, you know, is here too. And this country's managed to run this far, I guess, right?
By resource rate of the rest of the world, though.
So I guess that's our best hope.
The next global hegemon is going to be Pakistan.
Yeah, but hopefully we'll talk more about this once the situation is more clear.
And once Pakistan becomes the global hegemon tomorrow.
I mean, it depends if, you know, Imran Khan.
So it depends on that. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah. Well, let's see.
Yes, sir.